So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for coming. And um, this is our third in our AI Friday series, the second one that I've done. So this one we're going to be talking more about using AI at work, what those tools look like, and all of that good stuff. So some ideas for use, some questions or concerns about use, general guidelines, all of that we'll kind of be covering today. And then we'll also have some time to like play around with things as well. Just as a quick confirm, if somebody can throw me a thumbs up or something, a reaction or whatever, that you are able to see my screen. It says I'm sharing a window. You should be seeing a cute little robot.
Yeah, I can see it and hear it.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right. So just again, what we're going to do today, we're going to talk about how generative AI can support your work. We'll look at some practical ways that you can use AI tools and making your daily work simpler. We'll talk about some basic usage guidelines, and then we'll also have some time to try it out, share ideas, have some question and discussion time about, what AI use at a higher education institution looks like, what it should look like, what kind of guidelines might need to be in place, if they should be in place at all. And as full disclosure, I did brainstorm the slides content for this presentation with ChatGPT 4.0 and then put it all into Canva because Canva is the best. So quick recap for anybody who this might be your first session. Generative AI as our general framework, that is AI that can create content like text, images, code, etc. So we are looking at, it's been trained on a whole bunch of data, and then it takes that data and it mashes it all up and spits it back up into something new. So it's really more of a regurgitation thing, but it is coming up with content itself. It is not going back in and retrieving content. It is spitting out new content every time. So it's not really at all like a search engine. It's like a very smart autocomplete. Your common tools, your large language models that a lot of people think of, those are going to be like ChatGPT, Copilot, Gemini, Claude, Meta AI. Those are the types of models that a lot of people think of, and a lot of what we'll be talking about today as well. That is just scraping the surface of what generative AI is. There are a lot of specialized tools. There's a lot of things that are built into different applications, but those are kind of like your big ones that encompass all of the things. We also want to think about it more as like an assistant. So it works best when you think of it as something that can augment your work, not replace something. So I kind of think about it as a really smart assistant. We think about like those really busy people who are super important, that they get their own admins or staff or whatever, like a congressperson. You almost never see them getting a personal reply from them. It's almost always one of their staffers. So it's kind of like that sort of thing where the AI is working as your staffer that can help you draft stuff for you or write all your speeches or draft that thing, and you can you review it and put the final touches and all of that good stuff on it. That's kind of what you can view AI as in this context. So some guidelines about using AI at work. These are not JC official guidelines. These are kind of more my own personal best practices. Um, and we can discuss later whether or not maybe Jackson College needs to have some official guidelines or policies or something like that. But these are kind of what I use in my own personal work and kind of some best practices that have come up as I've been talking with other people working in AI education in the community college and higher ed as a whole, and then just as in the workplace as in general. One of the first things I would say is be transparent about using it. So if you are using a significant portion of AI to do significant brainstorming, outlining, whatever, I generally recommend just acknowledge that you used AI. There's no shame in that. And generally speaking, if it's something that if you are an instructor or someone working with students and it's something that you would want your student to disclose, I would use those same rules for yourself, um, and kind of be consistent in that way. Again, I think there's nothing wrong with using AI to help you draft stuff, but like just being uh, open about it and disclosing that at the beginning. Again, JC does not have a formal policy about that for employees. We do have an academic AI policy for students, but we don't currently have anything that governs use for staff or faculty or administrators. I would always review it for accuracy. It can make mistakes. It can be very confidently wrong. And you are ultimately responsible for that content that you put out. So just like, when the congressperson, you know, gives a speech and they say something wrong and they're like, well, my staffer put that in, it's not a good look. Similarly, you just being like, oh, well, the AI got it wrong, you're responsible for that content. It came out of your mouth, it came out of your email. So, you know, always review that for accuracy before putting your name behind it. And a big thing is protecting sensitive information. So don't put confidential or personally identifiable information, PII, like student records or health data or HR files, or, I've seen people who have, put in like their financial records to have them analyze that and come up with and I was like, oh gosh, no. Um, unless it's designed and approved for that use by the college, that is absolutely not okay. There are some things that are on the horizon that maybe that will come into play for, but as of this time, there is nothing that is approved for that kind of use. And just especially if you're using a publicly available chatbot, do know that those posts are not private, or your chats are not necessarily private. There was a couple of incidents before where like somebody thought that they were just chatting with the Meta AI and it ended up posting their chat to Facebook or Instagram, and it was very embarrassing because they were asking some pretty personal questions. So just like your Google search history is not private, this is a kind of the same concept. So just be aware of that as you're having those chats with those chatbots. It's come out, there's a lot of research saying that, people are afraid to ask certain questions to a human, so they'll ask it to an AI. And especially like medical questions or some mental health things. And just something to keep in mind that those are not private chats. It is still like it can come out. And then I would also check for inclusivity. When you're using AI at work, there can definitely be biases in training data. There can be tone that's inappropriate depending on how the bot is set up or the prompts, or there can be accessibility issues. AI can also help, ironically, check for those things, but it has to be prompted to look for them. It doesn't automatically just come up with stuff that's absolutely accessible or completely appropriate or anything like that. So those are just some general guidelines to keep in mind for using AI in general, but especially at work. And at any point, if you all have questions or you want to interrupt, you can feel free to use the raise hand, or if you feel more comfortable putting your questions in chat, that is absolutely fine as well. So some ideas for using AI at work. These are all things that I've heard from other people. They're also things that I've done myself. So these are just some general ideas. This is literally just the tip of the iceberg. There are a ton of different things. There are a ton of specialized applications out there. There's a ton of very different and complicated and really deep dive things that people are able to do that are pretty specialized to their fields that are really awesome. So these are just kind of starting to scrape the surface. But some ideas would be like brainstorming. So if you're looking for ideas for your presentations, social media content, if you are looking for, like for me, for like programming ideas, coming up with some fun giveaways, titles for sessions that you're wanting to hold that might be kind of catchy, that you can kind of use as a springboard. Sometimes what they come up with is really cheesy, but you can sometimes use that as to get those wheels turning. The annual goals, everybody's favorite time of year. You can kind of put in some of the stuff you've been working on and have the AI help you figure out how to turn those into concise goals that you can enter into Neo every year. Also for faculty, coming up with discussion prompts for classes or for your discussion boards. Um, lots of options for brainstorming. I use it for that a lot. You can also use it for drafting. I think a lot of people know that you can draft your emails with generative AI, job descriptions, explainers, help documents, standard operating procedures, syllabus outlines, quiz questions. Those are all great generators to get things going. Again, you are responsible for that content, so make sure that their answers that they're coming up with are correct. This is where it helps to be a subject expert in what you're looking for. You kind of know what you're going for, and having that background knowledge there behind things, you know what you're looking for. So you can ultimately be like, oh yeah, that looks good. Reviewing stuff, it's really helpful for checking for tone, for grammar, for accessibility issues. It can be really good for those things. You can have it like Copilot will rewrite your emails in a certain tone if you're like wanting it to be super professional, or if you want it to be a little bit more casual, depending on what kind of audience you're writing to. That can be pretty helpful. Um, and along those same lines for communication, I've found it very helpful. Like if you have a difficult conversation or a difficult email that you're trying to write, you can use it to role play those difficult conversations to give you ideas for how to approach something. You can ask it to give you feedback on what you're saying and how that could be perceived, especially in a tense situation. You can have it draft difficult messages. So this is sometimes helpful if you're, communicating with somebody that you're kind of frustrated with, and you need to maybe back up and have a more impartial party have a look at it. You can take yourself out of it as a way and make it a little bit more impersonal. Um, in some of those ways where maybe you're having a difficult time removing yourself from that, or your personal experiences from that conversation. So that has been kind of helpful sometimes when for instance, have a student that's frustrated with me because I'm emailing them too much, asking them to return their overdue laptop or something like that, and just be like, this is why we can't have nice things. Like you can't email that. So that's sometimes helpful to give you ideas for how to, come back at someone when, we are all humans and seeing red. So another thing that you can use AI for is analysis. It's very good at aggregating data. It can review qualitative data, so a whole bunch of survey response paragraphs or something like that for common themes. Compiling overviews of professional literature or scholarly articles, it's really good for that. So Notebook LM is a really good tool for uploading a whole bunch of articles on a similar topic, and you can like interrogate with those and get some good summaries of what's going on in there, common themes that it's seeing, and all those different things. That's very helpful. I use it for spreadsheet analysis of our collection. So I can use it to tell me, for instance, all of the books in our collection that haven't been checked out in X number of years, and it can generate me a list of all of those, and I can use that to determine whether or not we need to still keep those on our shelves. That's very, very helpful for me, and it used to be a really manual process, and it will return that to me in like less than 2 minutes. So that's really cool. You can also use it for planning, so scheduling events, timelines for projects, blocking out work schedules. If you have Copilot in your Outlook, you can ask it to find time to meet with X person instead of having to use the scheduling assistant and get into your calendar. It's all in one. You can actually do that from your email, which is pretty cool. And this is just going to get like right now, a lot of those things can be in like separate interfaces. It's going to start getting more integrated. Like if you have Copilot or Gemini, it's already kind of floating out there. That's going to continue to happen. So one of the really cool things that I like about AI at work is how it can support accessibility and neurodiversity. So I have ADHD, so I identify as neurodivergent. And it has been really helpful for me because I need help getting the spinning, racing thoughts to get nailed down into one thing, and to get me organized and to combat some of that executive dysfunction. So it is really helpful for that. And it can be really helpful for other people who are neurodivergent or who have accessibility needs. So um, in terms of writing support, so like again, drafting, rewording, organizing thoughts, getting your thoughts all in an order. You can kind of do a brain dump and it'll help you, streamline things. So I've like brain dumped a bunch of tasks and it'll help me like group them into types of tasks. And what things might be more urgent than other things. And I can be like, no, no, that one's actually more urgent, or no, this one can actually be backburnered. And that's very helpful, because otherwise those things just kind of bounce around and all I think about is all of the stuff that's not getting done, and that's not helpful. um, you can use it for focus and planning. So I've also done this. I've been like, okay, I've got these projects that I need to get done. And I have this block of time. Help me schedule out blocks of time to work on each of these things. Or you can, again, generating outlines or checklists, like packing lists or other things that you need to get done every day, or on a given day. You can use it to help process information. So if you are looking at, maybe the statistical analysis section of a scholarly article and your brain is going, then you can actually have that give you a quick explainer of what's going on there, instead of your brain fixating on ANOVA and chi-squared and getting and just going no. You can have it give you a little synopsis of what's going on, or put it into a more digestible format. For instance, if a big wall of text is just not something that your brain wants to handle, you can have it break it down into bullet points. um, Accessibility check prompts, so you can have it suggest alt text for your images, which is very helpful. And you can also train it yourself. You can say, here's the best practices for writing alt text. Use that to come up with an alt text image for this image. You can use it to help simplify your language, make sure you're not using too much jargon, things that might be something that are everyday to us, but maybe not everyday to a student, especially a new student or somebody who's new to the field. So that's really helpful. I've used that to make sure I'm not using too much library jargon, because I know what a database is, but that means different things to different people. And so trying to figure out how to explain that, and not just like throw stuff out and just expect that people know what it means or can figure it out from context. Um, so that's really helpful too. Customizable communication, so you can generate alternate versions of messages for different audiences. So like again, for if you're looking at making social media content, or if you're writing a discussion board post versus maybe a little discussion prompt that you're doing in class, or you have two different class audiences, um, that can be really helpful as well, giving you different ways of saying things. Or if you have a student maybe who has some accommodations, you can then use that to adapt for their specific accommodation needs. And then again, content review. So checking for your readability levels. You can ensure that you're following best practices for writing for the web or for accessible content. And then identifying any potential barriers. So like a lot of ADA compliance checkers are already using some level of artificial intelligence when they're looking at things. This is just taking it to another level. So now we'll have some time to play. So you can feel free to use whatever tool you would like. If you're not familiar with any of them, or if this is your first time getting started, you can go to chatgpt.com and or Gemini.google.com. Chatgpt.com does not require you to log in to just interact with the chatbot. I think some of the other ones may require you to create a free account. Um, Gemini you can use with your JC account, since we do have Google tools. Um, so it just depends on your level of comfort and if you want to have an account or not. Um, so you can use some of these suggestions. You can adapt those to your own personal context. You can use one of the things that I just brain dumped on you in the last couple of minutes and use that to come up with something if something caught your attention specifically for your specific area of work. You can use one of those and kind of iterate on that prompt. Just some prompting tips as you're working on that. Be specific, give a lot of context and details. The more information, the better. The better your prompt, the more detail you'll get back. So, let it know who your audience is, what you need help with, how long you want the response to be. It kind of defaults, especially if you are not a frequent user, it'll default to being very wordy. Um, so if you want it to be very concise, then you need to tell it that. And again, the more detailed, the better your initial result, but always ask it to revise or expand if you want it to include more bullet points or if you want it to explain something more. Like for instance, when I was brainstorming this presentation, I was like, okay, add some additional details for these bullet points on slide 6. Or give me some other topics of discussion for these brief bullet points on this topic. And that helped me come up with some more talking points or additional information for particular slides. So yeah, feel free to go out and do something. Um, I have some of the things, you can always hit up the JC policy page and have it like summarize a particular policy that you've always found a little dense, because we know that those tend to be very high level wording. And so, maybe you could have it like reword the policy in Gen Z slang. Um, that could be both entertaining and informative. So for work purposes, have I found most of the things I use available on the free versions? For the most part, yes. For a while, I wasn't paying for stuff. Some of the advanced spreadsheet analysis things that I do, those are in the paid version. But for the most part, the free versions, especially if you're only using it like a couple of times a day, are totally fine. You don't really, and I think I've talked with a couple of other people who had been using the pro versions and then they decided to come back and use the free versions instead, and we're finding that the free versions now include a lot of the stuff that the pro versions used to. So I would say that the free versions are pretty useful for the majority of use cases, especially in the types of things that I've been talking about here. So good question. And we will have time to like share out and stuff afterwards. So I will definitely be interested to see what some people decide to do something myself while we're here. Or I can kind of show off something that I did the other day and it was kind of fun. I was designing new buttons for our button maker. So I had it come up with some fun button ideas for new student orientations because I'm trying to make them more interactive while I'm dumping on doing tours and stuff like that. Check me out, yeah. I do like the Library of Things fan club, so you can probably, we may have some of those in the future, maybe even at Jet Jam. I like the Where's the Free Pizza. The college mode activated was really fun, so I had it design a couple of mock-ups and then it came up with those, and then I took those mock-up ideas and translated them into Cricut Design Space, which is I use their print then cut feature to cut them out in the circle sizes that I need. Um, but it was kind of fun to get a visual of it. I was like, oh yeah, those are nice. Now, obviously, it would be even super nicer if Cricut could design those for me. I'm sure it's just a matter of time. But that's just an example of something that you can do with the brainstorming, and then you're like, oh, I like those. It'll give you way too many ideas, and you can like a couple of them, and then just have it, give you some visuals to back it up all in one place. I also, not an at work thing. I did a triathlon and I kind of skimped on my training, so I had it help me draft a 12-day training plan for my triathlon. So that's another thing that it can do. Or if you've got like a project timeline that you need to work on and be like, okay, I have 12 days to finish this project, help me break down. And again, for me, where I can get into overwhelm pretty quickly because I'm like, oh my gosh, there's all of this to do. There's so much. Where do I even start? It can be like, oh, well, I just have to do like a 15-minute swim today, or I can just do like a 30-minute bike ride. And I will say this did work because I did complete the triathlon. I accidentally did the wrong, I was supposed to do the mini sprint, and I accidentally did the sprint distance run, which was 3 miles instead of 1.5, and I did not die. So I'm still here. So it's very approachable. Training plan did in fact work. I probably could have trained better for the swim, I'm not gonna lie. But again, it's taking that from it, it scraped a bajillion different free triathlon training plans off of the internet and spit that back out. And that's where the tips and stuff come from as well. So it's kind of blended all of that up and given that back to us. It could not tell me where in fact it got that information from. And then it also offers to turn it into a printable checklist or calendar. So I could have this, I could say, turn it into a calendar and see what that looks like. So again, it's assuming that I haven't already done this, but it'll be like, okay, here's what date you do this, and that if you need that next level of scheduling, you can get that in there.
Funny this conversation came up because I just did this morning, but mine was move me from a walker to a runner. And then I just randomly asked it to come up with a program and it was absolutely wrong. But it's okay, I can adjust it. But it was pretty cool that I had to add stretching and more holistic ideas to like complete the schedule instead of just running.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, because it doesn't have any like cross training or anything in here. And I just needed something nitty gritty to be able to like not die. So or really just for my brain to know that it wasn't like it was actually approachable.
I should add that. Make sure that I don't die.
Yeah. And I also told it in my prompt that my goal is to complete the race. I am not trying to be competitive in any way, shape, or form. And also I don't like to run. But so anyway, so it was like walk, run, and I'm like, I'm not going to run. I am not a runner. I will never be a runner. I've never enjoyed running. I've tried running on multiple occasions. I've done a couple of half marathons, and running is not for me. And that's fine. My husband is a runner, and I know many people who are runners, and that I more power to you. All right, so let's maybe circle back a little bit. We've had some time to look a little bit at some things that may have worked, what may have not have worked, and you can feel free to share out in chat or somewhere else, but like what worked well, and we kind of touched on that a little bit. Like sometimes it's completely wrong, but it at least gives you a framework to start from, usually. Sometimes it's just not right. Thanks for joining. Did anybody have something that they thought worked really well when they were trying out some of the tools or a particular prompt idea? Did anyone take one of Jackson College's policies and have it reword it? Just out of curiosity. One brave soul did try the policy one. Did you have it summarize it, or did you have it reword it? You had it check the dress code. That one is a little bit, I think that's on the schedule to be reviewed at the next admin council, so I'm kind of interested.
I just had it checked to see if it was, I asked it things like, is this an inclusive policy? Is this match modern, but that type of stuff.
Oh, interesting. What kind, did it give you some different kinds of feedback?
Sure did.
Interesting. That's definitely something that could be pretty interesting. Anybody else have a cool example of something that they did in their practice, or something that you're still maybe working on while you were listening? See anything surprising? Got a couple people typing in the chat. Cool, cool. Helping sending a final email to your students at the end of the semester. It's a nice encouraging email. We've talked about using it to, like, if you have frequently used email types, you could use it to draft some templates. I've used it to draft like a template email to send to all students that have laptops that are coming due or are almost overdue. Is this something that you would all try again? Is it something that you could see yourself using frequently? Is it something that you're like, I can take it or leave it?
Well, I use AI daily. I mean, just the example like the email and things like that.
Mm.
I have a collection for each class, a folder of AI prompts and stuff. So like when I'm writing like when I write a final email, I'll be sure to have it tell them that their grades will be in Jetstream by a certain date. And it's kind of like a template, but it will generate a unique email for them every time.
Nice.
Um, so
That's cool.
as a tip, there's a program out there called Notepad++,
Hmm.
which is a handy little notepad that allows you to keep multiple tabs, and I keep that open um, with an array of text documents that I store prompts on and things like that.
Cool.
But I use ChatGTP to like grade assignments and lots of stuff.
Nice. Have you found it to be give helpful feedback in terms of grading, or does it sometimes
Yes.
screw up?
It tends to be a little bit stiffer in the grading than I would be, which in Canvas, that's where I can even keep track of that. I give them the grade that ChatGTP gives them as the score, and then if I don't like the score, I will bump up their score with fudge points in Canvas. So I can actually, that lets me go back in and kind of review how much ChatGTP and I are different on the grading.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Huh. Interesting. So it's more
it,
harsh
it
sometimes.
it tends to be, yes. I mean, you can prompt it to make it less harsh, and I think a lot of people don't realize if particularly, I'm not sure Gronk and Chat GTP, I think there is a limit in there on how big your prompts can be on the free version. Um,
Yes. Yep.
I think, yeah. So I have some pretty big prompts that I've engineered. So um, it'll review the student assignment. It'll even give feedback prompts that I plug into Canvas for, okay, you got 80%, here's how you could have got to 100% sort of stuff. And you can also have it check to see if it's AI content.
Nice. Yeah, that's super cool. Like, I know that that's kind of the cool thing about it being an assistant like this, like we're all strapped for time and this can be a real time saver, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my assignments in a class I teach is I have them use it to write an essay, and I give them the prompt to use that it will create two factual errors in the essay. Then I have the students go in and fact check it to find those two errors.
Oh,
That's useful. The only real issues with stuff like that is I teach in the alternative energy sector, so I do see it making mistakes. If you ask Chat GTP, like, what are the 5 top consumer values for using green energy, it'll probably tell you that lowering your electric bill was one of the goals, and it actually never was. That
mm,
was never something that the public was promised. So, and
interesting.
that's the bias that it picks up from how it's trained, because
Hmm.
it's not, that's one
Yeah,
of the,
and again, that's one of those things where that's something that you, as a subject expert, are going to
yeah,
figure out, but your students might not always pick up on that, especially if they're new to that subject.
yeah, yeah. I have yet to explore consensus, which is like an AI tool just for academic research papers.
Mm.
And I'm wondering if that is going to be better, if they're putting more like thought into curating the sources that they use to train these things on.
Yes, and in Sonia's last session, she had like there's an AI for that.com, which she just dropped in the chat. But that's a really helpful site for finding a variety of different, very specific types of generative AI or AI tools. And that's really cool for coming up with like you were saying, something that's more specific to academic research or that's more specific than the big, huge models. So I also wanted to open up discussion. I saw there was another thing in chat about the NAVs using it to using for responding to emails when students are maybe being a little angry or rude, and making sure that your responses are professional and clear. Which, yep, I've had that before, especially when I'm telling students that they will be billed $900 if they don't return their borrowed laptop. So definitely have used that for that. Can understand. Or if you're using our texting service, if you need to shorten your message to fit the character limit, it's very helpful for that as well. So I also wanted to open up like some discussion, like, is there some pros or cons to using AI at work? Do you think that we need guidelines or policies at this point? Is that something that would be helpful or should be explored? Do you have any other thoughts or concerns about using AI at work? It's kind of it's a little bit different, I think, for uh, when we're coming at this from an employee perspective as opposed to a student's using for their work perspective. There's a little bit different nuance to that conversation.
Hello, all. I'll just share that I know I've received some work emails where I've thought, that doesn't sound like this person, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I think probably over time as a culture, including our own work culture, we'll get to that where there's some kind of almost like an email signature that's like, um, um, yeah, I used my AI assistant today or whatever. I mean, something that's just kind of a, yep, I'm using all my tools. And I think there's some attitudes on both sides where people think, oh, that's a weakness. But then on the other hand, there's kind of the, oh, like, oh, somebody's bragging because they're so techie. And I've been stewing about a question I have when we get towards the end. So, but yeah, thanks for mentioning that about if we should be disclosing or how we might disclose.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's something to be thinking about for sure. Anybody else have any thoughts or ideas about that topic or any we think the Center for Innovation ran a Brian Newberry did a session on AI etiquette, and we kind of touched on some of those things about like AI note-taking bots or in meetings or some of those the etiquette around disclosing AI use or anything like that. And there were some interesting discussions that came out of that as well that I think were pretty valuable. Yep, and as with anything, it can be used wisely or misused. I think AI is a very gray topic, and so I think that you can hold two things in your mind at once. There are some really cool upsides to this technology. There's also some pretty big downsides to it. And we kind of covered some of those in my intro to AI session as well. Like there's some really cool things that it can do in terms of being able to help you out and create some really cool and fun videos. It can also, be used to create deep fakes or voice clones of people, and that's pretty scary. And that's, there's obviously things that have been shown about it being used for making scams more sophisticated, and that's obviously worrisome as well. So yeah, that there's some definite things that can be looked at there, but I think that it's a topic that should be approached from both sides with yeah, there's some cool things, there's some really good things, and there's some really bad things that been that and downsides and environmental impacts and um, issues with intellectual property and things like that. So
Is it okay if I ask my other question now?
yeah, please do.
Okay. As I was listening today, I got to thinking about I think what I need to do is develop my own personal AI professional development plan or something like that, because I'm just overwhelmed. Like there's just so many different AI tools, and all of my conferences and continuing ed this spring have been about, most of it's been dominated by AI, and it's just absolutely overwhelming. And it feels like, oh my God, like I need to carve out a whole other full-time job worth of time to figure this out, and I don't even know where to start. So um, I have a question and an idea. My question is are any of you finding particular YouTube people that have been really helpful about learning something? Like, for example, Copilot, I believe, is the one that's related to Excel. So that would be a good one for me to explore. Um, is there a YouTube person that's really good at like going through how to use apps, that kind of thing? That's my question. And then my idea is, I think what I'm going to do is focus on three areas: text, Excel, and video. Those will be my three areas. Pick an AI app. So I'm narrow it down to three, and then start playing with those three. Does that make sense? Just to kind of whittle it down so it's like a workable strategy. Yeah.
I mean, to the first part of your question, I haven't found a lot of YouTuber content on specifically regarding like how to use but I'm sure that there are videos out there. Um, but I haven't looked into that too much. As you said, there's just a lot, and you do have to, like, it's very smart to say, I need to focus on these areas and just try and focus on those areas. So like just from personal experience, trying to stay on top of everything, you absolutely cannot. Um, and there's going to be stuff that you miss. And so just trying to focus in on one particular area of AI. So I kind of focus generally on, AI literacy and teaching people how to use it appropriately and, how to find that kind of stuff. But I do not know everything about all the tools that are out there. There are literal thousands.
Yeah.
Um, and I think picking areas to focus on that are helpful to you specifically, that is very helpful and a good idea. I will say for spreadsheet analysis, particularly, Copilot and ChatGPT Plus are the ones that I've found to be the best to actually read and use the spreadsheets. Um, so that is something to keep in mind. Gemini refuses. I've used it in Google Sheets, and it's like,
Got it. Well, thank you.
so your mileage may vary, and it might get better. I think that AI plus spreadsheets is going to be game changing. So once that data analysis part gets real figured out, it's going to be dope. Not to date myself with my slang, but
I like it.
In response to the question about plans to offer a session to students on using AI wisely, Dr. Sonia Howell and I did a course that's available on Jetway that is free to anybody. That is AI for Students. And I can drop that link in the chat once I get there. I will do that. And I know that a few instructors have embedded that into their course, actually. So, and that is an asynchronous. They can do it on it's asynchronous. It's self-paced. It doesn't take a ton of time. I'll put that link in there. In terms of live sessions for students, I don't know how much we may offer just because it can be really tricky to get those to go on. So, but we may do more recorded sessions. I've got some other ideas out there. So if you hear feedback from students on specific things that they want to learn, then I am all ears. So I just wanted to leave you with some resources again, and I've got the slide link in the beginning of the Teams chat. But I've got just like a general wrap up and some just tips, figure out what works best for you, keep experimenting, chunk things up. Don't try and take on all of AI at once because, as Suzanne pointed out, it will get overwhelming very quickly. And then I just had some prompt guides and resources as you figure out, like as Tom has used his own guide and selected prompts, so you can come up with your own library of prompts that work well for you. But there's some prompt guides and resources as you're getting started from a variety of different areas. So one of them's from Stanford University, so more of a higher education prompting. One of them is from SHRM, which is an HR association, but it's helpful for any professional setting. And then one is from Atlassian, which is a tech company, and that's their ultimate guide to writing AI prompts. So variety of different backgrounds to get some different perspectives and coming at things, because I also find that sometimes going outside the world of higher ed and into the general corporate world can be pretty helpful, especially as we're looking at getting our students workforce prepared and getting to know these technologies so that we can pass on our knowledge to our students as well. The slides are also going to be up on the website. The website is www.jccmi.edu/AI. That is live now. The recordings are not up there yet, but I have it on good authority that they are going to be up sometime next week. And you can always feel free to email me with any questions or if you want to stop by and have a chat. Again, no one can be an expert on everything AI, but I try to stay up with things and know as much as I can to be able to help educate other people on how to use it and evaluate it and think about it critically. So that is what I'm here for. So yeah, our next session is going to be on Friday, July 25th at 10. That's going to be with Larry Choate. He is going to talk about how he uses Notebook LM, which is a really specific AI tool from Google, and how to use that in the classroom and beyond. And then if you have any questions, comments, if you have suggestions for future sessions that you want to see, this is something that I think is very much in demand and people want to see more of. So please feel free to reach out with any ideas. And we've got 2 more sessions left. We have that one, and then just a broad discussion about AI and life and the universe and all of those things, positive and negative. So appreciate you all taking the time. And if you have any questions or wrap ups before we wrap up for the day.
Oh, good. Thank you, Jen. I really liked your suggestions that you laid out in the beginning. Those were really good.
Awesome. Thank you. I will go ahead and stop the recording, and we will see you all hopefully at our next session.